Urracá emerged as one of the most relentless and strategically brilliant indigenous resistance leaders in the early history of Spanish invasion in Central America. He ruled over the Ngäbe people in the mountainous regions of what is now western Panama, a land defined by steep ridges, dense forests, and narrow passes that resisted easy movement even before war arrived. Unlike coastal regions that fell quickly to Spanish ships and fortifications, Urracá's territory was built for defense. He understood this terrain not as geography, but as an extension of his authority. Every valley, river crossing, and mountain trail functioned as part of a living system of resistance that would frustrate the Spanish for nearly a decade. The Spanish arrival in Panama marked a turning point in the conquest of the Americas. Control of the isthmus was essential for moving people, gold, and information between oceans. Spanish leaders believed that indigenous resistance in the region would be brief, assuming that demonstrations of force would lead to quick submission. Urracá shattered that assumption almost immediately. Rather than confronting the Spanish in open battle, he observed them, he studied their movements, their dependence on supply lines, and their vulnerability once they left fortified zones. From the beginning, Urracá understood that Spanish power weakened the farther it traveled inland. Urracá refused Spanish demands for submission and tribute, making him a primary target for conquest. Spanish commanders attempted intimidation, diplomacy, and religious coercion, all of which failed. When Spanish forces advanced into Ngäbe territory, they found themselves fighting an enemy who never appeared when expected and never fought on Spanish terms. Urracá employed a strategy of constant pressure without decisive engagement. Small units struck quickly, vanished into the forest, and returned before Spanish troops could regroup. Horses struggled on steep terrain, armor slowed movement, muskets misfired in humidity. Every advantage the Spanish relied upon became a liability in Urracá's world. What made Urracá especially dangerous was his ability to sustain resistance over time. Many indigenous uprisings were crushed quickly because they relied on singular confrontations. Urracá did the opposite. He spread resistance across space and time, ensuring that no single defeat could end the struggle. Spanish expeditions were forced to move cautiously, knowing that every night camp could become a trap. Supply convoys were attacked, messengers disappeared, morale eroded. Spanish chroniclers described Ngäbe territory as hostile, cursed, and impossible to pacify. Urracá's leadership extended beyond military tactics. He coordinated alliances with neighboring communities, creating a regional resistance network that shared intelligence and resources. This network allowed Urracá to anticipate Spanish movements and respond before settlements could be established. Spanish commanders found that every attempt to build permanent control was met with sustained disruption. Forts were isolated. Outposts failed. Settlers abandoned newly claimed land. Urracá had transformed resistance into a system rather than a reaction. The Spanish attempted to capture Urracá multiple times, believing that removing the leader would collapse resistance. These attempts repeatedly failed. Urracá avoided predictable patterns, relocated frequently, and used decoys to mislead pursuers. Even when Spanish forces managed to surround his position, he escaped through routes known only to his people. His survival became symbolic. As long as Urracá remained free, Spanish authority remained uncertain. One of the most significant moments in Urracá's resistance came when Spanish forces attempted to negotiate from a position of perceived strength. They offered peace, recognition, and limited autonomy in exchange for submission. Urracá rejected these terms, understanding that Spanish treaties were temporary tools of control, he recognized that accepting Spanish authority, even symbolically, would open the door to permanent occupation. His refusal forced the Spanish to continue a costly war they could not easily win. Years passed, and Urracá's resistance continued. This longevity mattered. It delayed Spanish consolidation of the region, disrupted transport routes, and forced colonial authorities to divert resources away from other campaigns. The longer Urracá resisted, the more expensive conquest became. His war demonstrated that indigenous resistance could function as a long-term strategy rather than a desperate last stand. Eventually, Urracá was captured through betrayal and exhaustion rather than battlefield defeat. Spanish records indicate that he was imprisoned and removed from his territory, a move intended to finally break Ngäbe resistance. Yet even his capture did not produce immediate submission. Resistance continued under other leaders inspired by his example. The system he built outlived him, proving that his leadership had embedded resistance into the structure of Ngäbe society itself. Urracá's legacy is often overshadowed by better-known figures of conquest, but his impact was profound. He demonstrated that empire could be stalled, drained, and destabilized through sustained resistance rooted in terrain, community, and patience. He forced the Spanish to acknowledge that not all regions could be conquered quickly, and not all leaders could be intimidated into surrender. In the broader history of the Americas, Urracá represents a critical lesson. Conquest was not inevitable or effortless. It required enormous violence, time, and compromise. Leaders like Urracá exposed the limits of imperial power, proving that resistance could endure even under overwhelming pressure. His struggle did not end Spanish presence in Panama, but it reshaped how that presence developed, slowing expansion and preserving indigenous autonomy far longer than expected. Urracá did not seek legend or martyrdom. He sought control over his land and the survival of his people. His resistance was disciplined, strategic, and grounded in responsibility rather than spectacle. In doing so, he became one of the most effective guerrilla leaders of the early colonial period, setting a precedent for resistance that would echo across centuries. Urracá's story reminds us that history is not only shaped by empires, but by those who force empires to fight for every inch. His leadership turned mountains into fortresses, forests into shields, and time itself into a weapon. Because of leaders like Urracá, indigenous resistance in the Americas cannot be dismissed as brief or futile. It was sustained, intelligent, and deeply consequential. Follow for more history they never taught us in school.